Imagine a liquor store in your hometown that sells 5 million 12-ounce servings of beer a year, and there's nobody there that can legally consume it. Imagine that every time after that beer is sold, the person who's of age goes out into the parking lot and with the full knowledge of the liquor store owner, resells it to our children who are not lawfully allowed to consume that alcohol, possess it, or buy it. Imagine then our children, because of that, their life expectancy is not 78 years, which is the average American life expectancy. It's somewhere between 48 and 52 years. Imagine then, because of that alcohol being sold, their rate of diabetes is 500 to 600% higher than Americans as a whole. Imagine then that their families, 80% of whom are deathly affected by alcoholism. Imagine then that it has affected those children so profoundly that 58% of their own children were raised by grandparents. Imagine then the 90% or better of all arrests in that community are caused in large part by the illegal possession and consumption of alcohol. There would be riots in every one of our communities. But because exactly that is happening, but is far away in the town of Whiteclay and Pine Ridge, and because it's not our children, it's Native Americans, we have tolerated that kind of human carnage for decades. Let me explain what this lawsuit says, and let me explain how basic and old the theory is. It is perfectly lawful for me on a baseball diamond to hand it back to another person. In fact, that would be considered good sportsmanship. But if I am in an alley and I hand it back to a person with the full knowledge that they're going to use it to hit another person, that's a serious violation of both our civil justice system and our criminal justice system. What is going on in Whiteclay? This is a town, last count of 11 people. They sold 4.9 million 12-ounce servings of beer in a town of 11. In Whiteclay, there is no place you can lawfully consume beer on the premises. It's all off sale. You cannot, under the law in Nebraska, resell that beer. It's illegal. You cannot consume it in public. It's illegal. And the only population center, less than 250 feet away, is the town of Pine Ridge, where no alcohol is allowed, hasn't been allowed except for about a year in the 1970s, for a century. 4.9 million cans of beer. Everyone, from the clerks selling it, to the distributors, to the brewers, know that when they sell that beer, it's going into the town of Whiteclay, from the town of Whiteclay into the Indian reservation, largely the village of Pine Ridge. That is like handing a baseball bat to a person in an alley, knowing they're going to use it to hit someone. And hit them they did. 1 out of 4 children born in the village of Pine Ridge is alcohol affected. Fetal alcohol syndrome, fetal alcohol dissociative syndrome. 1 out of 4. The cost to the Oglala Sioux tribe and to us as a whole is staggering. Take one child who is born so damaged before they draw their first breath that they will require substantial medical care to survive through their natal state. And then if they get through that point, they will go into school and they will require massive amounts of special education to cope with the neurological damage done by the addictive, consumption of alcohol when they were in the womb. And the odds that that child then will not get out of high school are overwhelming because of the hurdles in our space. And the odds that they will then go into jail and violate the law, costing us a substantial amount of money. Now, the last I heard, in Nebraska, in the penitentiary, to maintain one person in jail for 1 year is in excess of $30,000 a year. So we have a child who has already gone through all of this money, and by the way, the social services, trying to find foster care because 80% of the families are so affected by alcohol they don't function. They can't place it. All those costs. That child's down in prison, in and out of prison. What does that cost Oglala Sioux tribe and our society? And then, that child, rather than working through their 40s and 50s, producing things of value, paying taxes, building their community, is likely to die at the age of 48 to 50, losing all of that productivity. And there is no question among anybody who has ever had any kind of dealing with Whiteclay at all that they know. Nebraskans for Peace for over a decade has been organizing marches. They've barricaded the highway from Whiteclay to the Pine Ridge. They know, from Anheuser-Busch and InBev through the distributors to the people who sell the alcohol, they know exactly what they're doing, they know exactly where that alcohol is going, and they know exactly the consequences of what they're doing, of the profits they're making. Now the law is, and we have some handouts, probably not nearly enough, has been clear that if I know, or I should know, that I am selling alcohol to a person who's going to bring it in across the border in violation of the legal and civil duties to the Oglala Sioux tribe, and I give them substantial assistance or encouragement, that I am responsible, along with that smuggler, that bootlegger, for all the damages that it has caused. That law has been in existence and has been understood in this country for many, many, many decades. It's old law. What is different here than perhaps other places is when they sell alcohol at 4.9 million cans of beer a year at Whiteclay, they know it cannot legally be consumed. There is no place that alcohol can be consumed responsibly. And this lawsuit is to force the entire beer industry, from brewers to distributors to retail salespeople, to do what they tell us when they advertise beer at the end: drink responsibly. This lawsuit is to force them to be responsible in their business conditions. We're not telling them, don't sell alcohol here. This lawsuit's not about that. What we are saying is, when you are selling alcohol that you know cannot possibly be legally consumed and possessed, then we're going to hold you responsible for the damages. And that's all this lawsuit's about. It does not go to one individual. It's not about anybody who chose to drink or bring alcohol in illegally. It is just like the United States, fighting the tide of heroin and methamphetamine that threatens to overwhelm our society. Alcohol has overwhelmed the Oglala Sioux tribe on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. There's no difference between that kind of behavior and people who aid and abet the importation of drugs that are illegal here. No difference. They are helping people violate the law, and this lawsuit is about holding them responsible and stopping what is nothing short than an absolute devastation of a whole people and a whole culture. If you have questions, I'd be happy to try to answer.